So I had a buddy once upon a time, he was in the beverage industry, right? Sales. And he was the quintessential sales guy, high energy. And he used to say, my job is to put liquid to lips. So I think about, here on Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation, audio to ears, or maybe podcasts to platforms. That is, once again, just to refresh everyone's memory and objective here, that is the mantra.
You know what amazes me every time, Paul, is how you veer us one way and you still get us to our proper destination.
Don't jinx it, because I'm having a hard time maybe understanding the juxtaposition of our game plan with the actual mission as described here by Darren Urban, as this is the Impact Draft Edition of Cardinals Underground.
We could have figured that out beforehand, but that's okay.
Yeah. Paulie podcast over here. I'm not sure if the word is dubious, but I think I'm going to need to be sold myself, Darren, on what this concept is exactly and how we factor into your plan here.
So the plan is going to be this, as we put together this fine podcast. We're going to do a draft. We're going to call it the Impact Draft.
You miss those mock drafts so much that we're doing a draft now.
So this has nothing to do with like fantasy football.
No.
Okay.
So this is how much these Cardinals players, whoever we may be picking, will be impacting the team this year. Now, in theory, because I know you guys are monsters when it comes to your prep for this podcast, you guys already have your draft board. And then as we go around, we got to figure out this draft order. I'm not sure how the best way to do that would be, but
you can let me go first.
That's fine. And then we will go ahead and draft who we think will make the greatest impact from most to least. And we'll kind of see how this draft plays out with what this team is going to do. So
if I'm understanding this correctly, the no-brainer number one pick would be Kyler. Just because of
we haven't had the number one pick yet, Paul. Why are you trying to crap all over this?
I'm saying it because just the position he plays. If you're talking the impact on a game, the impact on a team, obviously it would be your starting quarterback, right? Is that what you mean by this?
Not necessarily just position, but player.
Okay.
I mean, it could be. If you have the number one pick, you can pick Kyler.
I'm kind of nervous for this. Why is that?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, Dani,
I did the best I could coming up with these ideas, people.
Don't overthink
Work with
it.
me.
Don't overthink it.
If I had a penny for every time I heard that, Paul.
Yeah. We rarely agree on much here on Cardinals Underground, and I think it's about to go down in 3,
who gets the first pick?
2, 1. All right.
I mean, I'm willing to do ladies first here. We'll do a snake draft, so whoever goes third is also going to go fourth, and then we'll just go back until we get 9. And the idea would be that we could chat a little bit about these players as we go.
Okay. And since I cracked wise off the top, I'll go third. So
we'll just go in order.
It's your
of this
concept,
fine.
Darren, so you go second.
We'll just do this, and
all right.
That's all great.
All right, here we go.
So now Dani gets the first pick, and apparently Paul's going to crap all over her if she doesn't pick Kyler.
Can I get the music in the background before Roger Goodell comes on stage?
There's no music.
The pick is in?
No.
Yeah, we're going to drop that in, Cody.
Here we go. All right. Number one pick, envelope, please. Here we go.
Who are you picking, Dani?
You're on the clock, Dani.
Well, I hadn't had this thought until Paul brought it up about 12 seconds ago.
Don't be so pliable. Stick to your guns.
You're saying X, you don't want me to pick who I'm going to pick.
Who would you have picked if not for my earlier diatribe?
The number one name at the top of my document on my computer in front of me is Kyler Murray. There's no other option at taking the first pick in this draft.
We weren't arguing with you, Paul. We just didn't want you to, again,
try and just
kill everybody here.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the first full off season for Kyler with this coaching staff. And it seems like he is making the most of it. He's been here every day in the facility when it's been voluntary. He's been working out with his receivers off campus, building camaraderie with his receivers, his offensive linemen throughout the offseason, going on trips, bonding together, making fun of Paris Johnson Jr.'s swing and James Conner's three-pointer. He is stepping into that role as a leader. Last season, before Kyler came back, the Cardinals were averaging just 17 points per game, which was 28th in the league, 290 yards per game. When Kyler returned, averaged 22 points per game, 363 yards per game. The Cardinals had the number one run game. They were top 10 in first and third downs. 3 of their 4 wins that season came with Kyler Murray as your quarterback. I have very high expectations, and I feel like everybody in this building, everybody in the Valley has the same. This is year 6 for Kyler.
Yeah.
There are no excuses at this point because we've seen what he's capable of. And I believe he's capable of more because Kyler's talked about how this offense is being set up. And in year 2, it makes more sense. It's not going to be as vanilla as year 1 as everyone's getting on the same page. And if this offense can continue to be two-dimensional and allow Kyler to control the game and only use those parts of his game where he scrambles and he extends plays and he's holding on the ball or whatever he's doing to extend plays and get those extra yardage only when he needs to rather than consistently relying on them, Kyler's going to create success for this team because of the weapons that have been put around him. He has the skill set, he has the support, and he has what he likes in this offense to really create some scary performances with this team and lead the Cardinals to success.
I mean, I don't think there's. I mean, of course, Kyler was going to be one, and that makes all the sense in the world. I mean, we've said it a million times. This team is only going to go as far as their quarterback takes them, and I, as Paul mentioned, he was at the top of Paul's list. Of course, he was at the top of my list, and I think ultimately,
Darren.
I mean, I think. Somebody asked me in the mailbag up at one point recently that is this the absolute make or break season for Kyler? I don't like that dramatic of a black and white because there's always nuance there, but obviously I think there's a lot. The spotlight's there.
I think it's pretty evident he believes. He's all in. He's fully vested now. Is that because of Jonathan Gannon and the scheme and his praise for Drew Petzing and what he has around him? Absolutely. I think this is just my theory that the injury kind of reset him. The injury, and look, when you lose something that you love dearly, you value it that much more. First time in his life he ever had to go without football. And from what I can tell, the outside looking in, he's all ball. That's what his life revolves around. So I think with that in mind, and then also with the renewed enthusiasm of who he has around him and who he has calling the shots, and you heard what he had to say on Arizona Sports, where he talked about, you know what, we used to be a team that maybe was talented but wasn't that well coached or maybe didn't play that hard. Now we're a team nobody wants to play, and we may not have as much talent, or at least that was the narrative in 2023. Well, if you're a team no one wants to play because you play hard and now you have talent, or at least you've increased the talent level significantly in that room, okay, what does that mean? ... And for that reason, I just see a guy who believes more than ever before.
All right, so we'll move on because we're going to be in trouble if we spend this much time on every player. But I got the number 2 pick, and for me in this impact draft, the second to me the person that has the next chance to have the most impact. Again, not that far out of the realm of possibility, James Conner. And I say that for a couple reasons. One, I think this team obviously showed what they want to do on the ground last year. And while I think Trey Benson's got a chance to make some noise, and I think this is a team that's going to use multiple running backs in multiple ways to run the ball. I'll be interested to see if anybody takes the Rondale Moore role this year in the wide receiver room at all. I still starts with and ends with Conner for me, not just because he's the number 1 back, but I mean, I think as we've seen the evolution of James Conner since he's been here, he's got that real heart and soul feel to him, not just for the offense, but for the whole team. And that always means a lot. I think it means to me even more on a team like Jonathan Gannon has constructed where, as we've been saying, the vibe is a certain way. I think you need those heart and soul players. And I just think for everything, I think if you had to draw up a running back to fit with the culture that Jonathan Gannon has wanted to build here and Monty Ossenfort, I think James Conner's that guy.
That's a good point. Well said. I mean, James Conner's more than a running back. He's a mindset. He is bully ball. He is the sort of ball that Jonathan Gannon wants to play. And that's why JG had been so effusive in his praise and how often he consults team captain James Conner. He runs things through him and gets feedback via him before he institutes some stuff.
Conner's coming off a 1,000+ rushing yard season, and he didn't even play in every game. He said that's the floor for him, not the ceiling moving forward throughout the rest of his career. this offense runs through James Conner. I know it's obviously going to run through your quarterback, but I mean, it runs through James Conner and how Drew Petzing likes to call this offense. And that's what allows and will continue allow this offense to be two-dimensional, is if you can rely and hand the ball to James Conner as many times as you did last year.
See, this is where the draft starts to get fun because now, first of all, Paul gets back-to-back picks. Unless he trades one, which I'm not expecting that. And now we get a little bit of like maybe our thought processes start to diverge a little bit.
Let's hear it, Paul.
Okay.
Which was your first? Who's the third overall pick here?
I did have Kyler 1. I did have James Conner 2A. 2B, Kyzir White, who is my selection at number 3 overall, quarterback of the defense, Kyzir White. And the value of any player is truly gauged when thou shalt does not have the services of that player, and that's what happened the last 7 games of last year, and I didn't really like the look of the defense minus Kyzir White. So welcome him back with both arms, and I just think everything...
not just one ball?
Both biceps.
It's the same. It's the same. So the Kyzir White factor, I believe, is real, not just his style of play, not just him setting the tone. 4 plays into Washington in week 1 a year ago, right? Oh, I ran into Sam Howell near the white stripes. Sorry about that, Sam. Not so sorry. And then he shoves him down again. Okay, that set a tone right there. But then just the way the players rave about his ability to make the checks and the calls and the audibles of the defense, and he instantly can recognize stuff. And based on what he said in the offseason, he is ultra motivated. He wants to try and have his first Pro Bowl campaign. And the way last year was tracking, although it wouldn't happen because you were on a 4-win team, if you can, contend for a wild card, maybe knock on that door, get into the postseason, yeah, I think he's got a legitimate shot.
That's a good underrated pick, Paul.
I just think Kyzir White is that guy. Again, when we start talking about guys that fit exactly what they're trying to do, he's that guy in defense.
Yeah. All right, so now we go to number 4. This is not so easy for me as I run through some of the names here. Impact, as in who's going to have the greatest impact on this team this year.
See, this is why you set up a draft board, Paul, because then you've done all the prep work.
Come on, you're already
and
on
all the
clock.
hay's in the barn. So now it's just picking the guys off the board. That's what I have here. That's what you did, right, Dan?
Well, as Monty said, just follow your board, and I'm actually going to go off my board. I'm going to skip down to, and I'm going to go Max Melton.
Whoa! A surprise at 4. He was on my board, but not this high.
I'm going Max Melton. The importance of that other corner opposite Sean Murphy-Bunting. Hearing some good things, pretty good about young Max Melton, how equipped he is to play right away. He is definitely a student in the game. So there are some things I'm hearing now that I haven't heard since, and I don't say this lightly, Tyrann Mathieu.
Whoa.
Hearing some things. So I'm gonna go out on a limb. Max Melton is my next pick.
You know what's incredible, Dani, is I could have sworn in recent podcast memory, Paul was saying that they should sign as a veteran cornerback, and now he's saying the rookie cornerback is going to be like the 4th most impactful player.
Darren,
yeah, well,
I do recall.
I'm dealing, though, with what's in front of me. Okay, these are the ingredients.
Yeah, but you're going off the board.
I can't make lobster bisque if I don't have the lobster. So, I'm dealing. I've just got the bisque here.
Okay.
I will say that I do think, like I said, Melton was actually on my board, lower, but was on my board, and I do think he's going to out of all the defensive rookies, obviously he was one of the higher ones picked. But I just think because when you add in need, when you add in Dani's excellent point on a recent podcast that Jonathan Gannon wants to develop these young defensive backs out of the draft rather than go get somebody else, I think he's like right in line to like make an instant impact. So I like the pick.
Yeah, I didn't like Dani's point though about developing their own cornerbacks because it blew my point out of the water about veteran cornerbacks. So where are we here on the draft?
That's what good podcasting is about.
Okay.
I believe I have the number 5 pick.
Number 5 pick. So
Don't
it's
pick
Kyler.
my guy.
It's Kyler, James Conner, Kyzir White, Max Melton, and at number 5,
I'm going with another rookie. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. Sorry about that, Dani.
Yeah.
Is it too late to trade?
I just think
Captain Obvious. Excuse me.
We've talked a few times about what he might do, and I know that Calvisi's in that spot where he thinks Marvin's going to go for like 1,600 yards and 172 catches, but
no, just around 1,400. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. That's all.
I do think when we talk about impact, whether it's 1,200 yards or 1,000 yards, the impact he's going to have is what was talking about the other way. I definitely enjoyed the Kyler Murray comment on Arizona Sports. He hesitated to drop any foul language, but he was saying how Marvin was going to be somebody that defenses were going to have to game plan for, or, as he said, he kind of paused and then find out. He didn't add the first part of the find out, but I do think that that's the impact that Marvin Harrison, you either make sure you're dealing with him or you're going to blank and find out with this offense. That's what I think.
I had Harrison on my board, and typically I wouldn't have put a rookie this high to set those expectations. I think it's fair to say that Harrison doesn't come off as a typical rookie in the best ways possible when you're looking at physical traits, intelligence, humility, putting the team first, everything that we've gathered from our own interactions with him, hearing from teammates, from coaches. I mean, Kyler even saying that you can see the natural talent and that it's no question whether or not he's going to take this offense to the next level, because even when Harrison isn't open, he's open. He's somebody you're going to have to rely on, and he can carry that load.
Have you guys noticed that every time a player on this roster is asked about Marvin Harrison Jr., they use one word, baller?
Yeah.
Honestly, I just did an event where I had a couple of Cardinals players, one on offense. Actually, both were on offense, and I asked them about Marvin Harrison Jr., and the one guy said baller, and the other guy nodded and said baller. And they just sort of stopped, and I had to ask him to elaborate. It's kind of the ultimate compliment, player to player.
For that age group, absolutely.
To call you a baller.
Yeah.
And they've already determined, even before training camp, dude is a baller.
Look, I mean, there's a reason he was the 4th overall pick. There's a reason people thought he might have been the best player in the draft, period. The question now, Paul, is if, with the impact draft going on like it is, does Max Melton, who already kind of half celebrated the fact that he, quote unquote, kind of shut down Marvin Harrison when they went head to head in college, does Max Melton now parade around talking about how Paul Calvisi took him higher than Marvin Harrison in the impact draft?
Well, here's the thing. Based on the recent outcomes of the Paulie Pigskin breakout player at camp, which is usually figured out this time of year as well, Max, do not flex that or tout that whatsoever. Okay,
that's fair.
You might want to run for your life, actually.
I made my board, and now that I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, do I go rogue and do something? I mean, how does Monty do this?
You've got back-to-back picks too, Dani.
I know.
What is the what are we on? 6 now? 6.
Yeah. Okay. So. I'm been deciding between like 2 players on defense, and I'm just gonna stick with what I wrote, even though I can make an argument for another.
See, this is how Monty doesn't want to do it in the draft room. This is why you do because you don't.
And then I'm
going to
stick with my board.
That's a smart move.
She's talking herself out of it, or not.
I'm going with B.J. Ojulari.
Okay,
another good pick.
Yeah, his first full off season, he was rehabbing his rookie year. This time last year. He's put on weight. He's been challenged to shorten his stride by the training staff, the coaching staff, to prevent some likelihood of a future injury just based on his size and what his stride length is. Last season, Ojulari played in all 17 games. He had 40 tackles, 5 for loss, 4 sacks, and 6 quarterback hits. That room as a whole really needs to step up. I think we saw some good flashes from Ojulari and what he's capable of. And this is what you'd expect as a big jump in year 2. He was a 2nd-round pick last year. That's what the expectation is. When you're looking at the other pieces that have been added to this defense, which is kind of where I was thinking going elsewhere, it really sets up Ojulari for success. When you're looking at the attention that's been put in the secondary, the attention that's been put on the D-line, you added Mac Wilson as another linebacker. I mean, this defense, right, they've kind of worked on every other area, which says, okay, we trust this room enough. You guys got to step up and you have to show us what you can do. So I would like to see, and I would expect to see a big jump, so I'm going with B.J. Ojulari.
B.J. was also on my board. I think that's a good call. And somebody is going to emerge as a pass rusher, and he makes so much sense. He looks the part. I think he says the right things. I think his mind is in the right place. And I know this is a little thing, and I may be reading way too much into anything. But after like the change of the number, and talking to him a little bit, I happened to be the person that got a chance to talk to him about it first. I get the impression that if he's going to be number 9, he wants to make sure that there's a reason to be 9 and to show people like, okay, if I'm 9 now, I'm going to be a better 9 than I was 18 as a rookie.
I mean, if you're wearing a single digit,
he kind of said that too. Yeah.
You have that self-confidence.
Yes.
There's
a swag that comes with single digits.
You've willingly put yourself in the crosshairs.
Exactly.
But I wrote that down, Darren, because you just guaranteed the Red Sea when you said someone is going to emerge as a pass rusher. So Red Sea, book it and bank it. Darren Urban says there will be a legit pass rusher on this team.
And I'm sure you're going to hold me to that on a future podcast.
Okay, my next pick.
Oh, that's right. We're on 7 now.
Next pick, again
not
between
about
2.
You, Darren.
Yeah,
Let's go.
no, it's about me.
Yeah.
My next pick, again between 2 players.
Now, Dani, you jumped all over at your pick, and
I
now
know,
you're not
I know,
ready
I know, I
to. You're
know.
not ready to pick.
Okay,
Do you do this at
I'm gonna-
restaurants with a menu? Are you in the
Sometimes.
menu?
Well, see, here's the thing: is the best thing is when you go to a restaurant with someone and you guys each get something you want, and then you can share. So it's not as
Gotcha.
stressful
That's
in
fair.
that sense.
Yeah.
Although every
Okay.
time I do that with my wife, she's like,
Stressful.
no, I don't want you to get something you don't want just so I can try 2 things. I'm like,
Okay, I'm
come on
sticking
now.
to it. I'm going with Trey McBride. I'm going with the tight end. 17 games last year, 12 starts, because Zach Ertz was a starter at the start of last season. McBride set a franchise record for single-season receptions by a tight end with 825 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And again, that was not even with a full year of being your starting tight end. Half a season with your franchise quarterback. And once McBride and Kyler got going, it was fun to watch. Can't imagine it was fun to defend, but it was fun to watch. McBride was a top tight end and receiver in stats across the board once Kyler returned. I think having a full offseason, working together as 2 starters with the playbook, I don't see how they, as a duo, do anything besides make strides forward significantly. McBride has said this offseason he really wants to make sure he's a complete tight end and he wants to get into blocking. The fact that the Cardinals drafted Tip Ryman, who has made it clear he wants to go out and maul some people and be your blocker, tells me that it's also important, making sure that McBride is going to be one of those open, reliable, consistent receivers. And that's what he is. He's reliable. He's good with his hands. He's tough to bring down, gets you those extra yardage. So I'm going to go with McBride.
I think that's a great pick.
Thank you.
Absolutely on my board, and he was high on my board. I will say that the transformation on Trey McBride, especially after Zach Ertz was no longer around, was amazing in terms of his confidence level and what he did. And I like everything about Trey McBride. For a guy that when he was first picked, everybody was skittish whether that ended up being a good pick or not. I think he's got a real chance to be somebody that could carve his name into Cardinals history when it's all said and done.
Yeah, he reveres George Kittle. If he could truly be that dual tight end like George Kittle, look out. And the step and the surge in his progress that he took in year 2, it makes me wonder if a B.J. Ojulari could do that, look out. If a Dante Stills, if a Garrett Williams, if a Michael Wilson, all guys who had really solid rookie years, if they could take a next step in year 2 like Trey McBride did, do you know where that puts this Cardinals team? I mean, that's a lot of progress in one season. So, all right, that's number 7.
That's number 7.
At number 8, Darren Urban.
I'm sticking with my board. I'm going defense, and I'm going Justin Jones.
Ooh, that was the one I was deciding between with BJ.
There you go. I just, when we look, and we talked about this again on a recent pod, but like this defensive line looks incredibly different than it did. And I know that necessarily the Justin Jones and the Bilal Nichols free agent signings weren't necessarily creating a ton of waves around the league, but I think those 2 guys are going to help the line a lot. And I think Jones in particular, I love kind of how his vibe, this kind of nasty vibe, yet open when he was talking about near the end of OTAs, when he was talking about how, you know, you got to be giving out advice, but you got to be listening to advice. Everybody's got to be listening to each other. I just think he's going to be perfect. And listening to Darius Robinson talk about how when Jones and Nichols talk in the defensive line room, he's just a sponge taking it all in. I think both off and on the field, I think he's just going to make I think he's going to make a significant impact.
Yeah, why do I think 3 years from now, if Darius Robinson really emerges, that guys like Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols will be integral to that he learned from two ultimate professionals and guys who really understand the importance of accountability and then durability, and you play every down of every game as hard as you can, and you hope that really rubs off on a Darius Robinson, although from all accounts, he's already ahead of the curve. So that leaves me at number 9. I was surprised you didn't go Budda Baker. Surprised you didn't go Budda Baker.
He's on my board.
He's on my board.
Okay.
So is that where you're going at 9?
No.
Well, then.
No.
What the heck?
No.
There's no way we're going to do a draft and Budda doesn't end up.
No.
That feels wrong.
I just feel like here, this late in the draft, you've got to take a flyer, buy low, sell high.
If this is the punter, I'm done.
Close.
Oh, no.
A return man.
Okay.
/ number 2 receiver. At least he was your number 2 receiver the second half of last year.
Let's hear it.
Greg Dortch.
Greg Dortch, number 9.
With the new kickoff rules, Greg Dortch could be a real factor. You're going to go from 20% of the kickoffs return to more than 60% of the kickoffs return. The importance of the kickoff has returned. The impact of the kickoff has returned. And I know that Dortch is of the opinion that, guess what? This new format suits his skill set really well. And I don't think he's really hit the ceiling yet as a return man in the NFL. Now, we saw last year the 49-yard punt return against Atlanta. That was a game changer. Yeah. He had 3 big kickoff returns against Chicago that equaled almost 100 yards, one to start the second half. Yep. That was big. I mean, we've seen it in spots. But you got to remember, at Wake Forest, he was a first-team All-American return man. And I just think in this situation here,
with the impact draft, you mean?
With the new kickoff rules.
Just checking.
And only 5 yards of distance between, and now he's essentially going to have blockers in front of him like never before. I just think it's going to bode very well. And so in terms of impact, I'm going Greg Dortch as my final selection.
Yeah,
so,
that's a sneaky good pick.
Yeah, we'll see.
So should we recap this? Should we recap the draft class here?
I've been keeping score, or have you?
I have.
Go ahead.
Paul, you're driving this thing. Go right ahead.
It was Kyler Murray, number 1. I don't think there's any argument on that.
No.
James Conner, number 2. I actually, as much as I love to disagree with Dani, I had James Conner, number 2 on my board.
Well, Conner was my pick, but
actually,
that's
was
okay.
Darren's pick. I'm sorry. Kyzir White, number 3. Now, are you guys on board with that, or was there some
Kyzir was
there?
not on my board, but he was heavily considered.
All right.
Same.
Max Melton, number 4.
Melton was on my board, too.
Max was not on my board.
I swung for the fences on that one.
You got some fence swingers.
Yeah, I left Marvin Harrison Jr. on the board, and then Darren went with Marv at 5. Can we call him Marv yet, or probably not? B.J. Ojulari at number 6. Dani Sureck, solid. I mean, nobody's winning the offseason like B.J. Ojulari. If we were all winning the offseason like B.J., we'd be somewhere.
Also true.
And then Trey McBride, number 7. That was Dani as well. And no doubt, I mean, if you have other weapons and you have a top 5, top 10 run game, Trey McBride gets a lot of room to operate. And then Justin Jones. Okay. Why Justin Jones instead of Bilal Nichols, by the way? I was going to ask you that question.
I just feel like, I mean, Jones has had a little bit more of a pop for his career in general. Okay.
And then we all left Budda Baker on the board, most significantly
that's crazy to me.
And I went Greg Dortch.
Budda would not have been on the board, would not have stayed on the board if I was picking, but.
Yeah, I mean, Budda was on my board. Michael Wilson was who I was deciding between with Trey McBride of going, if Harrison's going to attract attention from a defense, someone like Wilson taking advantage of those opportunities. Justin Jones was one of those on my board.
I did 9 people because I figured, it's like the thing,
right.
Like no matter what, I'm going to get who at least those. And so Budda and Mike Wilson were the 2 guys on my.
I mean, you could have argued Jalen Thompson had a really good year last year as well. Yeah,
but again, we're trying to say who's going to have the most dramatic impact.
Right.
Now Budda might, but
are you sure you have the right Wilson? Could I argue Mac Wilson is a sleeper?
Possible.
You can do whatever you want.
You love those inside linebackers.
I mean, Darren, you guaranteed earlier, I'm quoting you, someone is going to emerge as a pass rusher, Darren Urban directly. Maybe it's Mac Wilson off the edge.
Possible. I didn't see you draft him.
That's good. So, yeah. You know what I'm going to do? Since it was such a slight at the expense of Budda Baker, there was that serious NFL radio poll of the top position groups, and I'm still outraged that they had 6 safety position rooms ahead of Buda Baker, and who knows how many they had. They only listed 6, and Buda and Jalen Thompson are not included. I printed that off. I put it up in the safeties room. I'm going to do this with our impact draft board. Maybe I'll print this off. I'll put it in there.
I'm going to start feeling guilty about this as soon as we stop. That we didn't have Buda in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Shoot, should we re-record?
Okay.
No.
Any other in the
He'll forgive us.
Others to be named later? Others receiving votes? Is there another name in there that you had in your board, Dani, that didn't get
probably would have been
drafted at
Buda.
all?
Oh, didn't get drafted?
Yeah, at all.
On my board. I had Zaven on my board.
Okay.
But I don't know if that. I still feel. I had BJ Ojulari higher, and I feel like that would be more of an impact. So that's how I landed there.
Okay. All right, so there you go. We got you guys tuned up maybe for your fantasy football drafts. Do you do fantasy football? Either one of you?
No.
Darren just dismissed it immediately, out of hand.
Did.
Just dismissed it. Okay. All right.
You
Darren,
wanted an answer.
how many mock drafts did you do for this?
What?
And maybe we'll leave it there. A question Darren doesn't want to answer here on this edition of Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation. Gotcha moment.